Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EBA webinar podcast series. My name is Aaron Smith, and I'm joined as always by Nancy Bakeman. We're really excited to have Kelly Hernsberger here from Goodman Daikin today. Kelly is the Vice President of Advanced Product Marketing and Innovation. We had Brian Jansen joining us as well from Daikin, and he will not be able to make it today. We apologize for that, but I promise you, we are all in great hands with Kelly. Normal rules apply. We've got the Q&A section. We'd prefer all the questions in the Q&A. It's kind of fun there because you can upvote the questions that are most important to you. We'll have Kelly go through today's presentation, and then I think we'll take questions toward the end of today's session. This, as always, will be uploaded to the EBA Learning Management System, and we will be on the Better Homes, Better Future podcast, where if we get to 1,000 listeners, I'll be pretty excited. We're close. So, Kelly, thanks so much for being here, and I will turn things over to you.
Well, thank you, Aaron. I really appreciate the time today, and we're very appreciative of EBA and all the good work that's going on there. And I'm very thankful for everyone's time today. I know everybody's got a busy schedule, but learning is just part of what we need to do to stay alive, right?
Amen.
So, yeah, thank you for that. So let me start by sharing my presentation. I think that'd be helpful. We'll do that. And I will do my best to have the comment section open towards the end. I'm not going to do it exactly right now. Now, I just got to ask, can you see a presentation? And
I see it, Kelly, but can you go to presentation mode?
I'm going to do it
full screen.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. Did that help at all?
Yes, and of course, people can adjust their screens if they want within the Teams environment.
Okay, yeah.
But right now, I see you side by side with it. So if you'd like a different view, just go to View up at the top, and you can change that as the attendee.
But you're seeing the full screen of my presentation.
I am. Yes, I'm seeing you in full screen and the presentation. But let me stop spotlighting you for 1 second. Okay, now you're full, or your presentation is full screen.
Okay.
And now I'm going to spotlight you again. I like it like that. Perfect.
All right. Yeah, so the title today I thought was kind of appropriate, Building Peace of Mind, Longer Lasting Energy Efficiency. And I've always had this concept in mind that we should be mindful of right sizing the supply and the demand side. And you do that with techniques with solar battery and heat pump inverter or AC inverter. We'll talk about different regions maybe, but Brian sends his best, his apologies and regrets he couldn't make it today, but he helped contribute to the presentation material, so I want to give him credit from Enphase. A very important aspect here is, again, the marriage of the solar, the battery storage, and the inverter HVAC system. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. So I'll just move on. And I want to talk about some things that I know could be a little bit sensitive today in our environment concerning codes and regulations or incentives, tax credits, things like that. And I'll go ahead and just first of all just address the big elephant in the room, and that is the fact that with what's been recently passed as a bill, and we've had a lot of discussion in the industry, I'm sure, about tax credits and credits for solar and PV being removed. So that has taken place. The big beautiful bill, if you will, has taken some big beautiful cuts to energy efficiency in some areas. But I'm going to also express today that the industry was moving along and doing quite well progressing in energy efficiency before the IRA and all the other tax credits that gave us the big boost. So we need to go back to what I would suggest are the basics. How do we instill the correct education and continue on with energy efficiency in the built environment, regardless of the big tax credit or the incentives and boost? We've got to make it clear that homes have got to progress, with these advanced products and techniques. So I think that's my mindset. But looking at what's happening, let's just say in state mandates, energy codes, net zero energy goals, we could go on and on about what are the influencers. I want to just highlight, again, in California, what's happening there. That's still been a significant driver, one of the most progressive states in trying to ensure that all homes are built net zero energy by code. We've got other states that still participate very heavily: New York, Oregon, Hawaii, Jersey, Colorado. There's actually more now that I should probably update this presentation with to give credit. But the point is that the momentum is in the market. You just have to find a way to express it, and it's in different states. It's not. We shouldn't just be relying on a federal situation.
Yeah, and Kelly, I always think it's interesting that our Canadian builders have not had any of these programs for years, and
Yeah,
they're doing an incredible job with zero energy ready, with net zero, with moving to heat pumps. So I think we think
yeah.
it's going to continue regardless of these things. The people that are doing the right thing, right?
Aaron, that's a good point. People, we get these tailwinds and these big boosts and things like that of rebates and energy efficiency, and that causes us to feel really comfortable. We relax a little bit because there's big momentum on the flywheel, but we forget that before that we were doing fairly well as an industry, moving along and advancing. And so you're right. Uh, there are some things we just forget about, and we got to go back, like you say, to the basics.
Amen.
Yeah. Now, the market drivers, like I said, the big beautiful bill, the BBB, we'll call it. Even though it was de-emphasizing solar tax credits and heat pumps for that matter in the HVAC world, I think the momentum is going to continue. And I think it's going to be because you're looking at power constrained regions, power constrained states. We'll still have local rebates, incentives, but think about time of use rates,
Yeah.
things that are happening that naturally cause us to have to go to different strategies, advanced building techniques, and energy efficiency.
Right.
So I think that's really what we have to think about: the rising cost of energy. I think there's still a lot of emphasis on decarbonization,
Mm-hmm.
electrification. It's still there. The
Mm-hmm.
technology is going to have to continue to advance. And, Aaron, one thing I've come to appreciate about EBA members and their focus on doing the right thing, putting more technology in the built environment, it gets me excited every time I think about
Mm-hmm.
it. So I think technology is going to advance. I think financing options are going to be interesting now with
Mm-hmm.
the BBB having been passed. I think there's going to be more leases back in the market for these types of products.
Mm-hmm.
Incentives for leases and loan packages that are going to come through that are going to be a lot different than what we had before. Um, but we want to lower that upfront cost and make these combined technologies more accessible. And then, regardless of what we keep hearing and, Energy Star or things, that we feel like are being impacted in the built environment, we can also point to the fact that, and you mentioned Canada, Aaron, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but even in the States, we're going to see even more adoption over time of, the International Building Code. Energy efficiency modeling is going to keep pointing to advanced technology for, financial incentives or reliefs for the homeowner, advantages against those who are not thinking about building with higher efficiency. The electric bill doesn't lie at the end of the day.
Right.
So that's what we have to keep thinking about. The more we educate, and I love this about EBA, just thinking about where we're at today. This is an education opportunity, a forum for us to keep learning. But the more we educate as an industry into the marketplace, be it if you're, in the built environment, how you educate homeowners, developers about your products, how the scientific community relates to the local builders and community of developers and bankers about energy efficiency. That's going to just keep bringing awareness to what we're doing. Grid resilience, that stands to, I think that's a big statement, but grid reliability is being threatened every day. We're working with multiple manufacturers, not just Daikin, but multiple manufacturers are working with utilities every day to introduce smarter systems, things that can, reduce the load on the grid. So when we'll talk about time of use, or I mentioned time of use rates, but we also need to be thinking about demand response, or as we would like to call it, energy efficiency techniques in the market. And then again, market competition. I think there's still a lot of folks that have products they want to bundle together and put into the market, but I also think the built product itself has to remain competitive with options. So we've got to continue making these products more attractive to yourselves as builders. So what I think is kind of interesting and what I like to talk about, I want to just zero in on inverters. And when I speak about inverters here, what I'm really talking about is on the HVAC side. So not the inverter that, takes AC to DC and such, but or DC to AC. But let's talk about what's happening with inverter systems and HVAC. And what I would suggest is that they can contribute to power grid stability because they operate on a spectrum of speed, right, and energy usage. So that's what I like about that product line, regardless, again, if it's the Daikin product line or any of the others, because there are multiple choices in the market. So, when the outdoor temperature falls, a fixed speed system, is going to typically switch quicker to electric heat operation, versus the inverter series equipment can typically keep going and avoid the electric heat. They're designed to carry a higher duty cycle for heating in heating markets, or if we're in elevated temperatures, they can overspeed a little bit and actually manage the cooling more effectively. And I think that the key here, and I like to emphasize heat pumps. I know there are a lot of folks probably on the call that are thinking, well, yeah, we're building down in in the coastal regions, and we need very little heat. But I think you can find a true advantage with heat pumps really anywhere. You're going to have some kind of heating requirement hours, unless you're down in the tropics, of course. But I really like to emphasize heat pumps because they will always do duty cycle. They're managing both your heating and cooling. But I think the closer we get to supply and demand, as they get closer in the marketplace, and we're talking about summer and winter peaking now, I think it's more important to observe variable speed equipment. It's easier to utilize in home energy management systems, and I can tell you that everyone's trying to get a piece of the total pie in the home. I've got an image in the middle of the slide talking about what happens with electricity consumption and how it is that everyone should be focused on how the home as a system operates. I think EBA members are really good about thinking about the home as a system. So that keeps me excited about opportunity. This is tying in the supply and the demand side and the software and the protocols that keep all those things glued together for energy efficiency. That's going to be a growing segment in the market. And then I'll just emphasize on the left-hand side that if space heating, cooling, and now let's just for grins add water heating in there, because there are a lot of products that are emphasizing 3-in-1, if you will, or you've always got water heating to contend with. But let's say that's at least 50% of the consumption in the home, if not more. Then I believe that it's a responsible position to take, where we can give not only higher efficiency appliances, but also give techniques on how to solve that energy, manage that energy during the day. And inverters, like I said, can do that by ramping up or ramping down. On the right-hand side, something that you may be or may not be familiar with, AHRI, the rating institute for our systems in the market, HVAC systems, there is a new standard that was created in 2019. The utilities are now emphasizing the use of this product in their product development features. What they're doing is going out to market with new programs starting at the edge of this winter. You're going to see more programs come out that emphasize 1380 as a protocol. That's where our HVAC systems that are variable speed are at an advantage, and they would be able to, of course, run at normal operation. You can see in the box on the right-hand side, they could also throttle down and run at a maximum energy input of 70% or maximum energy input of 40%. Or they could go to critical or emergency curtailment and turn off. But these connections I'm speaking of with the utilities, where things are being not just switched off, because that typically is going to result in some discomfort. The inverter series equipment will enable the home to still experience comfort, but its reduction in energy offers load shedding back to the utility. So that's a pretty cool concept. And then there's probably, you can imagine, if you're in the technology suite of things, you can imagine that there's a lot of speeds that could be tapped in between there that are not necessarily a part of this standard. And then I'll just emphasize, Daikin is positioned, Daikin, Amana, Goodman branded products. We're positioned as inverter technology leaders, heat pump solutions, and refrigerant leadership. We're moving into the connected intelligence, and of course we've been emphasizing indoor air quality for quite some time. But below, I just wanted to emphasize again in this chart on the bottom left, again, look at what happens with an inverter system versus non-inverter. The inverter system just carries through smooth and continuous on the set point in the middle. And then, of course, a non-inverter system, again, is just cycling on and off. And even if it's two-stage, it's typically only has two speeds, right? So it's actually still cycling on and off. It's just not as noticeable. Um, you get longer run times, better filtration, and more notably for the building science technology folks on the call, you get superior dehumidification because not only Daikin's, but other brands are probably doing a decent job too. But we are focused uniquely on maintaining relative humidity in the home at a comfortable and safe level to avoid the mold and some of the other things that can creep up if you're not controlling humidity. And again, I'm just emphasizing in the bottom middle towards the right, that duty cycle from 20 to 100+% versus the conventional models are, they're always just on and off, right? And so you get a pretty noticeable, up and down swings in the home. And then they're almost always 30% or less or more in energy efficiency versus the single or two-stage equipment. Now, I just wanted to emphasize that what's been happening with inverters globally versus North America. And, so you can look around the globe. I think it's interesting to see that, Japan's 100% inverter technology for HVAC, Oceania, Australia, China, Europe, everyone is indexing very high, in terms of inverter adoption. And North America is sat at, in this chart, it hasn't, embarrassingly, it hasn't moved that much since 2018. We're making a little bit of momentum now, but 16%. I mean, like, come on, that's pretty embarrassing globally. But we do believe that we're kind of at this tipping point. Not only did refrigerant changes occur, but we still know that even though there could be a slight delay on the next Department of Energy's energy efficiency standards, we think they'll still occur by 2030, 2031. And I think that's going to basically knock out single stage compression technology. And it very well could by that point, I'm certain that inverter technology will be at parity or an advantage than two-stage compression technology.
Sure. Kelly, you're actually seeing areas of North America that are past the tipping point.
Yeah, there are some really interesting areas. We believe it or not, I don't know who else on the call today from Maine, but they're well over 50% adoption of inverters.
I mean, Maine is the little engine that could, but they just got really serious
Yeah,
about it and
they
got it
did.
done. And then I
Yeah,
think that the southeastern United States, is well past the tipping point. But the issue has always been people think, oh, I looked at a heat pump 30 years ago or 20 years ago. This is not your
yeah,
dad's heat pump any longer. And these products operate down to what, Kelly? Minus 23, minus
yeah,
18F, minus 15F, somewhere in there.
yeah. They'll produce even in the coldest environments. We have heat pumps now that we're all a part of the heat pump challenge, but now we've commercialized them, and they'll give well over 70% of their heating capacity at minus 15 Fahrenheit.
Yeah,
And
that's
so, it's crazy that you think there's enough energy in the environment to do it, but that's what heat pumps do, and very
right.
advanced technology. So good point. There are some areas that have indexed, and we appreciate
Hmm.
that, but there we got a lot of work to do. You know. Let me shift now a little bit over to what is kind of the core idea today in the discussion, and that is when you combine these technologies, you give the consumer and the local region, the utility, everyone benefits. And I'll just again emphasize what's happening electrically with inverter heat pumps and the fact that they have virtually no startup current, low running amps compared to traditional HVAC. You can see that on the left-hand side. A little bit of a oscilloscope work here, but I'm emphasizing the fact that that inrush current is basically non-existent on a inverter equipment. And then if you see the signature on the right-hand side, you get that initial inrush current from the capacitors energizing, and you get a lot of wasted energy with the non-inverter air conditioners. On the right-hand side, I'm emphasizing here, this was some work that we did with Enphase, and this was a study when they, in their Series 3 equipment, they've now since moved to a Series 4 launch with their batteries and their gear. But this was a comparison of what happens with inverter heat pumps and the number of batteries that it takes to start up the system. So if you were off grid, okay, just imagine for me if you're off grid and you had the inverter system, you could start it with is a 5-ton with two batteries. At that time, that would have been a 10 kW system. So even think of a Tesla system, Tesla Powerwall, something like that. One single battery would be equivalent to those two batteries in that older Enphase system. So that would have given you the easy start. And then if you look at what happens with the fixed speed equipment, you'd have needed 4 batteries in that case,
Mm-hmm.
So the situation just gets better when we talk about runtime when you're off grid. If you want to have energy independence or resiliency, and we see that with the EBA building population because we see a lot of thought being given to homeowner comfort and resiliency. And I'm so encouraged by the technology in the EBA memberships products because when I see the HERS rating scores and I see how low the load is on the home, I get excited about not only, okay, maybe it's a smaller HVAC system by tonnage, but the comfort that that home is going to experience, and then off grid, you could run for just a longer duration of time because we're using so little energy to promote the comfort with the inverter. And so that's really what I wanted to emphasize in this look with the batteries.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me give some real life kind of simulations here, and I worked on these with Enphase, and I think it could be again it could be a story across the board, but in particular, we were envisioning what does it look like when you go to market if you wanted to put packages together. Okay, so this is in California. These are some real calculations that were used there. So you could have a starter system home. Maybe it's kind of the 10 panel home, maybe for roughly 4 kW type system. Maybe you throw in the EV charging station and you've got what we call fit, but it's really our side discharge inverter system, plus the heat pump, and then basically some light integration with home energy management systems. But it's really about just trying to get smart with the energy again. again, there you could reduce the annual energy bill by as much as 40%. And then, we're talking about a monthly savings, roughly $150, and over the 30-year loan, or 30-year typical 30-year loan, you're looking at over $50,000 in savings. And then you could kind of imagine an optimized system where you've really done some more homework, and you've got now you've got a battery storage system as well. And so you got, let's say you got the 15 panels, you got a little bit more production, and the storage is coming into play. Again, now they've gone to Enphase has gone to their revision 4 launch, if you will. So it turned into a 10 kW battery. But regardless, 75% would be kind of your target there for optimized savings on your bill. Big hit, 80,000 over that 30 years. And then finally, if you think about it, and I see this with some current EBA members, and I'll highlight one case study in a moment, but an energy independence perspective. Go with a little bit more production, a little bit more storage maybe, but EV charging, and then again, look at the savings, across the board. The offset just more than pays for itself, $109,000. Now, we also, Aaron, we were talking earlier about maybe the financing changes. Maybe these go into a lease program again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think we're going to have to sort that out,
Yeah.
how that looks, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of dust to settle with things, right? But
Yeah, there is. So now what I'd like to do is just show you quickly a case study, and this is something I'm working on today, along with Enphase and one of the premier EBA members, builders. And so I'll just show or highlight the home that we're talking about as kind of a case study home. And if you look at the home and the system size, this is kind of this is a great example of what you would see for this simulation together. About a 5.5 kW system. The panels, we've called, they're all called out here in their tech specs, if you will. But a decent sized system, and it's predicated on being 100% consumption offset. And then you can see the battery package. It's one 10 kW battery, and then the mode kind of matters. You see different modes in different companies' systems, but this was in self-consumption, and it was all designed in very smart software. From Enphase, they have some really smart energy software for modeling. The estimates there on consumption, of course, you can imagine this is in the South, and a really a decent utility rate, 14 cents kilowatt hour. Those are kind of the basics of the simulation. And then what I'd like to point out here is kind of the before and after with optimization. So if you used a traditional HVAC system, you didn't invite the inverter in, if you will, then, and there's some pretty heavy federal and state incentives calculated here. Just state incentives alone in this particular area were really high, 11,000, I think, plus. But on a 25-year estimated savings, nearly $46,000 or $47,000 almost. and that was a 6.8 kW size system. And then if you look at what happens when you combine the inverter HVAC, you can see you can reduce the number of panels, and you can also, of course, reduce the upfront cost to get into the system itself, around $4,500 estimated in this example. And then the 25-year estimated savings just goes up even more. But what I think is kind of interesting is the upfront savings, and then over time, the comfort is kind of hard to quantify, if you will, but the comfort itself and the mitigation of any the things that come into play with mold and concerns that people are not running their systems long enough for filtration and proper indoor air quality. It's kind of hard to quantify those, but those benefits are on the right-hand side with the inverter system. And then, I think I could talk ad nauseum about all the benefits to the home builder. I think it matters when you're talking about companies that you're partnering with, brands, but more importantly, the second bullet point there, the builder's brand. I think this is the key aspect here. This is demonstrating, energy efficiency and sustainability building practices beyond just being net zero ready. I think this is taking it to the next level. And I already know that there are a lot of members that are doing this today. So I applaud you for your practices and your commitment. The revenue, everyone has to remain competitive in the market. But when you're a market leader and you're stepping out into the next level of energy efficiency and comfort, you should enjoy more revenue and profit in the marketplace. Most of the builders in EBA, I'd suggest, are not in the race to the bottom. We're all trying to save money and make the built environment more affordable. If we don't keep that in mind, we'll get in trouble. But I do believe you could offer a product and get your fair part of the revenue. The premium HVAC offering, I've continued to emphasize that it's about thermal comfort, the IAQ, the quieter home, and the design advantages with zero lot lines, having the product configuration that I was speaking of earlier, where it's a side discharge unit, not the typical cube, but the side discharge unit allows you to have the HVAC systems operating on the side of the garden homes or in the back where the deck or patio is. And the quietness of the system alone is one aspect, but also the ability to tuck it underneath the deck, walkout basement area, or put it in the back closer to the back entertainment area, because you're not going to really have this noticeable sound problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, of course, everyone has to keep bolstering your ESG. How you do that in today's environment, that's something that I think is interesting to hear about, but that's going to have to happen. The homeowner benefits are multiple, and from some EBA members I've spoken to recently, they're focusing more on system resiliency. The home is a system. Remember, that's the key. The home is the system, not the HVAC system or the solar system. The whole thing is the system. And so I think focusing on savings and comfort and resiliency is the right way to think about it. Okay.
Sure.
Now we're at this really fun point called questions. Hopefully I covered, I had a fair amount of material and I tried to cruise through it so we could have some time.
Yeah. Kelly, what's the secret sauce here? Is it the home energy management system basic versus the elite system that is kind of controlling that environment and making it better? Or is it just simply that you're thinking about it as the house as a system and asking others of us to do the same thing?
It I like the latter first because I
Hmm.
think if you're right to emphasize the home as a system. If you start with that mentality,
Hmm.
whatever you do after that only enhances the product. But I think getting these systems right sized. Of course, I think with the EVA membership, everyone is using HERS rating, everyone is using an energy modeler. It feels like that's a given. We're going to have
Hmm.
properly sized systems. Um, but I think the home, how it breathes, ventilation.
Hmm.
Aaron, you and I were talking before the webinar started. Ventilation's key.
Yeah,
We all know
absolutely.
that. You
Yeah.
gotta you gotta not just comply with ASHRAE
Hmm.
code, but enhance it. Go
Hmm.
further. Make sure that the home is totally optimized with ventilation.
Hmm.
But it's all these things together. The appliances. I see a time in the future, not so distant from now, when we have protocols like Matter and we have OpenADR 3.1 that's kind of just getting memorialized now. There's some really exciting stuff happening in the integrated home,
Hmm.
and I think we're going to see products that really put simplicity and energy management at the forefront.
Hmm.
And I'm so excited about what I know the EBA members are going to be able to do with this.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
there's nothing special that we need to do beyond what you've talked about. There's no special thermostat or special energy management system that we need to enable this. This is just thinking about that
yeah,
if I ha-
that's right. Aaron,
okay.
what I just showed today does not force or impose another elite,
Yeah.
package or system.
Yeah.
This is just like putting the right puzzle pieces together today.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I feel like this is kind of the basics. Just get these things moved together, merge these things together, and you'll see these net benefits. But I do want to point to what I think is a trend and what's going to happen in the future. I think there's going to be more integration.
Hmm.
I see it today with my competitors in the marketplace. I know where Daikin is headed in terms of being able to manage more um, aspects of energy in the home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But Kelly, I also like your point of, you and I get to deal a lot with national utilities or regional utilities.
yeah, yeah,
And the thing that people don't perhaps understand is that the investment tax credit going away for solar and wind actually is going to make it worse. It's going to make the grid worse in the future. So we are going to have more and more reliability issues if we're not continuing to add what often has been the cheapest new source of energy, solar or wind, to the grid. And you're going to have more events. And I think in what you're saying is, yeah, you have a standard air conditioning unit. It's just going away when the grid goes down or when there's a brownout or
yeah,
if
yeah.
you're trying to go off grid resilient for your home, if you're still using those legacy systems, now you're going to buy another battery for the house because of the startup energy requirements that it has. So I think these
That's
are
right.
all really critical issues for all of us to be thinking about. I think that the analysis is incredible. The savings shown are really incredible. Um,
Yeah, they are.
and
They're phenomenal.
what I just want to give a commercial, but Marielle has put in the chat the EBA Excellence Awards,
Oh,
uh, we are going to host the Zero Energy Ready Home Awards. So if you see it back there at 12:31 Central Standard Time, the eba.org/awards. But I think this is exactly what we want to see. And I know the builder that you're working with, Kelly. And I mean, we want that type of house in the awards program. We want to be able to share that. We'll have the posters at EBA, just like Housing Innovation Awards did in the past. Um, the winners will be able to share at our awards breakfast on the Friday. But I just encourage any of you that are on this call, look at the different categories. We've got great things for zero energy ready home categories, for healthy, for electrification, for resilience, for decarbonization. So that's my quick commercial. Um, we did have one question come in and another question come in, Kelly. Uh,
yeah,
it might just be the attaboy there. Okay, so it says, as part of your partnership, have you or do you plan to do some advocacy work with the NEC to update those codes, since these products do not have much less peak draw, lots of money to be saved with WRT, less electric service needed, and allowing smaller panel sizing as well.
yeah. Again, first of all, thank you for the comment, Cindy, right? Thank
Yeah.
you, Cindy. Yeah, you're right. Has been more focus now than ever on inverter systems having full credit for the partial load capabilities that they operate in versus the AHRI 210, 240, two
Mhm.
data points, and then you're penalized for being more efficient in the middle almost.
Mhm.
So not just, I think NEC would be an interesting uh, body of organization to work with in this too, but I'll get right straight to the point. It's really updating Ecotrope software
Mhm.
and Energy Plus and all the softwares out there
Yeah.
that these your builders are using today with their HERS raters.
Right. And
And
or Hot 2000 in Canada as well, right?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Or in Canada, I want to make sure that you get full credit for these products. And I can tell you, I know my competitors would appreciate the same thing. But this category of products is just not getting its fair shake in the market when you do energy modeling. So that's the hard work that we're doing right
Mhm.
now. And I love the idea that you're coming at it from the electrical code. I will tell you that, if you look at companies like Span and Schneider and whoever has a smart um, breaker or smart panels,
That's right.
they're advocating for more emphasis and more awareness of the a new method for energy management in the home. I know some of you are actually using smart panels today in newly built homes because you're able to avoid something like a 400 amp service, or
Mhm.
you can pare it down. Those advocacies are happening today, and so I appreciate your comment, Cindy. That's very important.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. What do people need to do to reach out to you and your team, Kelly? I mean, this is, I think it's a great report. I think I want to see the follow up to it
Okay. Yeah.
as you're deploying this at some builders. But what's the best thing to do if they want to learn more from Goodman Daikin?
Yeah. My contact information can be made available in the follow up. Um, I'm a primary contact for this type of conversation. Would love to have that conversation, and then also get involved with, energy modeling. We're working on creating a broader support system in our company for builders. And so I just I would expect that you can call and we can put resources on your questions to make sure you're supported. Yeah,
Fantastic. Well, I put my email in the chat. So if you want to reach out to me, I will connect you to Kelly. I'm happy to do
great.
that. But Kelly, thanks as always. This is, I mean, it's really what we've talked about, right? That the house as a system type of thinking here. And I just love what you've done about it. Taking what you know from your industry, these new products that we're seeing. In fact, I assume it'll be even better with the new Altherma product.
Oh, yeah, that's yeah, you're speaking of our air to water heat pumps
Yeah.
and that's when you've combined space heating, space cooling, and domestic hot water with one
Right.
outdoor heat pump.
Right.
So that's even better.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think if once you start imagining the sky is the limit, as long as you can imagine this, the home as a system,
Hmm.
it feels like that liberates your thinking as a
Hmm.
builder and how you can deploy appliances and energy efficiency. Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Kelly,
Good.
thanks so much for being here with us today. And thanks for sharing your wisdom with
Thank
everyone.
you.
And
Thank you.
we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
You bet. Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.